It is 1:32. This is the Oklahoma County Planning Commission, room 204, 132, September 19th, 2024. Notice that this meeting is posted September 13th, 2024. Call to order. Roll call, Eric.
Members of the Planning Commission are Mr. Rob Murray, Mr. Rob Talbot,
Here.
Ms. Denise Patterson, Mr. Greg Davidson,
Here.
and Mr. Colton Murphy, who is sitting in for Miles Davidson.
Here. Okay, item number 4, approval of minutes of previous meeting, August 15th. Everybody's got a copy. Any amendments, changes? If none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. I'll move approval.
Second.
Roll call, Eric.
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Before we go to item number 5, is there something you'd like to mention, Eric?
Yes, the applicant for item number 10, which I think is what most people are here for, is asking for a deferral on this item. They would like to make some changes. I will have them speak to those requirements. They're just asking it be moved to the front of the document so they can have that discussion with you.
So we can move can we move it just on the deferral? And if we deny the deferral, it goes back to item number 10?
Well, basically, they're asking that it be moved to the document, or the first of the docket. So you would have to vote on that. And then if that's what you so choose, to move it to the first of the docket, then you can have that discussion from that point. If you deny it at that point in time, then
We can
kind of
move it back
starting
to item
over.
number 10.
Well, if you're denying it, then you're pretty much.
No, if we're denying the request for deferral and we hear the
I see what you're saying. Yes, yes. Excuse me. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so any questions for Eric? Okay, do I have a motion to move item number 10 to the top to talk about the deferral?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
and Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Okay, Eric, what do you got for us?
I will have her speak to her deferment, what her request is, and then depending on the direction that goes, then I will get into my information.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Caitlin Turner, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. So this is our first time asking for a continuance on this item. We did speak to Eric last week. However, it was our understanding we still need to attend and ask formally for a continuance. We're going to be working through some pretty substantive changes to the PUD document that we believe will make this a much more favorable application for everybody here. So we would love to have the time between now and the October Planning Commission hearing to iron out those details and present you all and the neighbors that are attending something that's going to be more compatible to the area. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Our engineer that's here also has a short window. He has to attend a funeral, so we also are kind of limited in that regard.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so let's start from the top. All requests for deferral must be written and forwarded to the planning department in a minimum of 5 days prior to the meeting. Was that accomplished, Eric?
No, they didn't really ask for deferral until the beginning of the end of last week. So we didn't know, I don't think they were under the complete idea of what they wanted to do at that point in time.
So the answer is no to number 1.
No, we did not get a written request.
Which means number 2, staff will draft an agenda item, so that did not happen.
We set up the item, like I said, that the agenda went out on Friday. We did not have any deferment because it hadn't been deferred from a previous meeting.
And when asked for item number 3, applicant must have a valid reason for requesting the deferral.
If this is going to be a better application, I understand the people that are here currently may not be happy with coming down here, but if this is going to be a more agreeable application than how it currently stands, you're at least making progress in the positive direction.
And if we deny the deferral and we hear this out and let's say it gets denied, then they come back in 90 days, 6 months? What's
Well,
the-
if it gets denied by the planning commission, they still have to go to the Board of County Commissioners, which
Okay.
is typically a couple of weeks later. If they follow suit of denial, then what you stated is correct. It's 90 days from that point of denial by the Board of County Commissioners.
Anybody else have any questions for Eric?
Yeah, how many people are here to oppose this? Thank you.
So,
I had sent the planning commission the initial letters that I'd gotten, and I do have several more that have been sent from that time.
okay. Other questions? So at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion to approve or slash deny the request for deferral.
I'll make a motion to deny it.
I'll second.
Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. So with that said, we will now make a motion to go back and continue from item number 5. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Okay, item number 5. This item was deferred by the Planning Commission at the request of the applicant on August 15th, 2024 PC meeting. Discussion and possible action to approve slash deny the general plat of Douglas Hills GP 2024-08. Eric, roll call or report?
Yes, this particular item was something that was initially denied by the Planning Commission a couple of Planning Commission agendas ago. If I remember correctly, that was in July. At that point in time, it was half-acre lots. They then went to the Board of County Commissioners. There was a substantial conversation with the Board of County Commissioners by the applicant, by a couple of property owners that were adjacent to the property. And at that meeting, they decided to modify the development from what it was at that time, half-acre lots, to 1-acre lots. And so since that time, they've gone back and they've modified the general plat, which is before you today, to meet the requirements that was set in place by the Board of County Commissioners for 1-acre lots. They modified the PUD at the request of the Board of County Commissioners. And that's where we are today. There we go. So that's what we have before you today is what they're proposing to build. There is a concern that we, the county, had, but also some of the adjacent property owners with the entrance there at Douglas. It sits at the bottom of the hill. The engineer sent us the calculations that we go by and the green book, which is basically the engineer's book when it comes to design of subdivisions and various other transportation-oriented projects. And so based on the calculations that were sent to us, engineering did review that and has no issue based on those calculations where the entrance sits in this picture before you. That is all the information that I have in regards to the project, unless you have questions of me.
I'm just a little confused. It says 102 lots on approximately 79 acres, but you're telling me they're all 1-acre lots. That doesn't compute.
Right. So what happened is when the item was sent out originally, the zoning and the general plat were put together. When they came back to the previous planning commission meeting, there was some discussion about modifying that based on the outcome of the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Since that application still carries forward, that's why it's still stated the way it is. So true, what is stated there is not what actually is being put in place, but that was the information that was put in the original agenda item. And so since that agenda item was deferred, that language stays with that item.
So even though this has been approved or presented as 1-acre tracts, the verbiage here states half-acre tracts. So we are gonna have discussion on the 1-acre.
That is correct. So what is stated there, yes, is incorrect, but it's incorrect because that was the original application. And since that application was not withdrawn or denied, we carry that forward, and that's where we are today.
Other questions for Eric?
So how many lots are there?
There are 58. So originally it was 102.
Any other questions for Eric? Is there anyone here who'd like to talk in favor of this project?
Caitlin Turner, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. The engineer's also here with me. So yes, after the PUD went through Board of County Commissioners, it was modified. Our general plat now reflects what the PUD requires, which is going to be the 1 acre lots. We've got 58 lots on about 80 acres, so that's 1.2 acres per dwelling unit. We have almost 12 and a half acres of common area, but in full compliance with the governing PUD document.
Questions? Thank you. Anyone here to talk against this project? State your name and address, please.
Kelly Cook, 512 Country Club Terrace, Midwest City, 73110, Oklahoma, Midwest City. So we have 10 acres that we've owned for 25 years. And there's a roadway easement off, we purchased it off Jim Herod, who I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with that name. And I think we have an easement there that comes to the back of the property, anyway. And I think they're using that easement as part of the common or the green belt, or I don't know. I just became aware of it yesterday. So I was notified of the original thing. We got a mailer on the first meeting, which I guess a month ago. I didn't come to it. But now I think they're using the easement, 60-foot easement off Waterloo as common. And so I don't know what the rules are common, but I know we have an easement. I guess that's the issue I'm concerned about.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So his easement starts here.
Yes, he is the owner of that 10 acres, and you see that strip that comes down at the top of the photo. It goes all the way up to Waterloo. It's approximately 2,000 feet long, and they want to use it as a green belt. The problem is that I see a green belt is not a road. You can't use the other roads in the subdivision as a green belt. You can't count them as a green belt. So why do you count this road that this gentleman has been using to access his property? There's power lines that go to access this property. There's an OG&E right-of-way that has to be maintained. How is that a green belt? How is that going to be used for the residents of the subdivision? Can the HOA come in later and say, oh, well, we don't want a hard surface road. We'll just put some flowers in. How is this gentleman going to access his property in the future?
Questions?
Okay, that, and one other thing you have to understand is the 40 acres to the west of that road, when it was originally
Ma'am?
sold.
Can I stop you? Your name and address? I don't know.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Mary Ann Serblin. I'm the
Just your
north
address.
neighbor to this subdivision on Douglas,
Your address?
24520 North Douglas Boulevard.
Okay, thank you. That's all we needed. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry, I
No, you're
jumped
fine.
in.
You're fine.
Okay, so that when that 40 acres to the west of that 60-foot strip was sold, it was sold as 40 acres except 60 foot by such and such for road use purposes. That's what was in the deed, that was in the contract. Okay, this was sold back in 1982 to, James Herod reserved that west side of Government Lot 3 to the Garrisons in 1982 for road and for the electric. Okay. The other thing is, when you do that and you use it for greenbelt, the developer is taken away from that common area at the bottom. It's now reduced by approximately, it went from 12 acres to 8 point something. So that reduces the land available for wildlife. There's a pond, it's wooded, it's a creek. There's 24 turkeys that live over there, about 8 deer, and a lot of other wildlife, and they go from that common area to my place back and forth. That's where they spend the night. That's where they live. And so when you're adding more lots there, you're taking away from that area for wildlife. And when you look at the master plan, it said the significant wild areas should be maintained and should not be destroyed. That's within Oklahoma County's master plan. Okay, going on, another thing is the lot spacing. I want to commend you with making deeper lots because I plan on, and I have had a number of different kinds of livestock on my property, and this will give a little more separation. The only thing one of the other things I'm concerned about though, is when you have narrower lots is fire protection. And in the county master plan, it was talking about larger lots where you don't have hydrants, so for fire safety, for fire protection purposes. Because of that, okay, and there's no plans supposedly to have hydrants in there. It's not in Edmond. Your nearest hydrants will be out on on Douglas south into Edmond. So what I'm asking the developer is when you're building the homes, don't build them all in a row. Kind of stair step them a little bit back and forth to provide some spacing for fire protection purposes, for aesthetics, and that doesn't look cookie cutter. It gives the residents some privacy. Okay. Also, I would ask them to reconsider using rural water because us people that are on wells in the area, I am one. My well's approximately 150 feet deep. I talked to my well company yesterday, and they said as more straws are put into the aquifer, every year the aquifer is going down, down, down. And right now, the common well depth is 300 feet or more. And when you do that, your water quality lower in the aquifer, you have more problems with like chromium, arsenic, and uranium. And that's per the report that y'all did on West Edmond, but it applies also to East. Because the aquifer is the aquifer. Towards the bottom of the aquifer, you have more problems with heavy metals. So going deeper is not the answer. So I respectfully ask them if they would reconsider hooking up to the Logan County rural water, which runs right up and down Douglas. It's an 8-inch line.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm still going.
Okay, well, we have
Okay.
I think you've done a very good job and we appreciate it, but in the essence of time, we need to move forward. So thank you. Anybody else here who wants to talk against this project? All right, Eric, you're back up. Talk to us about easements.
So that easement they currently do own, and it's part of the common space, but I'll let them speak to the fact that I would assume it would stay an easement and it would still allow them access to the property that's there, but I'll let them speak to
But
that.
before you go, my wife says this too. You used the word they. Who's they?
The applicant.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, so regarding the easement, obviously the easement is not going to change the property line. It's still going to be within the site. It should provide some comfort that it's just within the common area. We have no intention of obstructing or hindering the existing easement. It'll stay as is.
Any questions? Thank you.
Steve, do you have any input?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you have any input as far as the easement goes and their concern with the Greenbelt area?
I was confused on that 60 foot. And isn't it north of this property? Is it, Eric, is it
It
included?
attaches to the north property line, the very northeast corner, and goes all the way to Waterloo Road.
Is it part of this ownership?
Yes, they do own it.
But it does not encroach in the subdivision, in this plat.
It is attached to the plat in the very northeast corner. So when it is platted, it'll become common area for this plat. So the homeowners association or whatever they decide to put into place will ultimately be responsible for that in the long term.
For the whole easement.
Right, because it's part of that development at that point.
But I thought this gentleman had some claim to that same 60-foot easement.
Well, from my understanding, it does, but also they stated they don't have any intention of blocking him to use that easement. So my assumption would be that it would stay the way it is today. It's common area for this development, sure, but at the same time, there's nothing that you could put on there. There's no advantage of blocking him to his property.
Yeah, you can't landlock him anyway, so.
Right.
But long and the short of it, if I understand it correctly, they can put flowers, they can do all that stuff, but he can drive right over them and has every right to do so. They just can't put a permanent structure, they can't put trees, they can't do anything of that nature as long as that easement's in place.
That's correct. That's my understanding of it, so.
Right. So essentially, from our perspective, if we approve this, he still has the right to use it, and if they put a swimming pool, he could go in and fill it in with concrete and drive over it because he has the right to that easement.
I mean, you can never build anything there just because of our regulations and setbacks and all that. So there would be a whole other slew of issues.
Right, but from our perspective, it really doesn't have any bearing on this because we're not changing his right to that easement.
Right.
Okay, so he continues. Yep, okay. Any other questions for Eric? With that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve / deny item number 5, right? Well, that's what I meant to ask you. So when we do approve it, we have to just. Okay, so if we remember correctly, it was 58 lots?
Correct.
58 lots on 1 acre size, and it's still 79.3 acres. Correct, okay. So just for ease of purposes, I make a motion to approve item number 5 with the adjustment that the applicant proposes to develop a single-family residential subdivision with 58 lots on approximately 79.93 acres, and the lots proposed development would be a minimum of 1 acre in size. Second. Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray. Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson. Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Item number 5 approved. Item number 6, item was returned to the Planning Commission by the vote of the Board of County Commissioners. Discussion and possible action to approve / deny a zoning change from R2 residential, rural residential district to Plan Unit Development PUD 2024-03. Applicant is requesting that the item be withdrawn.
Yes, if you'd like to, I can provide more detail of why the Board of County Commissioners sent it back to the Planning Commission. Mr. Murray and Mr. Davidson were part of that process as well. But at the end of the day, the applicant has decided to withdraw the application altogether. So the pleasure is yours if you'd like more explanation.
I think, well, does anybody want more explanation?
Not me.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve withdrawing item, approve withdrawing item number 6.
Motion to approve?
Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. All right, item number 7. Item was deferred by the Planning Commission at the request of the staff / applicant at the August 15th, 2024. Did we do anything in the August 15th meeting?
Well, this particular agenda item, it was still under construction at that point. They haven't built the roads at that time. Since that time, they've built the roads. They have put the bonds in place for the roads and the erosion control. The only thing that we're waiting for is the testing as far as the roads themselves. Now, with that said, it's going to be up to the Planning Commission, but as far as engineering goes, we were out there. The policy is, since the new subdivision regulations have been put in place, we go out there with our road superintendent of that district to watch the process of the road being constructed from beginning to end. So in this particular case, District 2, Ken Wallace was the one who really supervised the construction of the subdivision itself. There was some modification to the subgrade. Once it was put in, the developer and his contractor met us out there to make those modifications. There's no issue with the asphalt, according to Mr. Wallace. So everything's in place in regards to our regulations. Like I said, the only thing we don't have is the test results. So everything up to this point is good. We're going to leave it in your hands as far as approving it. Like I said, engineering and planning don't have an issue approving it. Basically, if those test results came back, if there was some issue, then we wouldn't move it forward to the Board of County Commissioners. So basically, your approval would be contingent upon getting those test results.
Questions for Eric?
This gonna be a gated community or just?
From my understanding, yes, it is going to be a gated community. If you've been by there recently, I think there's a little shack, guard shack, if you will, that sits out there in kind of the middle of the road at this point. So from my understanding, it's going to be a private road subdivision. The county, as far as road construction, treats all roads, private or public, when they're first built the same. So that way the people that buy into this particular neighborhood have the same starting point as anybody else, since they're the ones who are going to have to maintain that road from that day forward.
So did you say it's asphalt roads?
It is asphalt.
Other questions? Is there anybody here who'd like to take in favor of this project? Name and address?
Ron Stearns, 3227 North Indian Meridian, Choctaw, Oklahoma. I'm the developer of the property, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate, as Eric mentioned, we spent a lot of time with Mr. Wallace. We feel like we'll have those test results back possibly this afternoon. They shot radiance on it, and all those pieces seem to be falling together in a good place. So just to give you that information. Thank you.
Hold on. Anybody have any questions? Okay, now you can leave.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to talk in favor of this project? Hearing and seeing none, is there anybody here who'd like to talk against this project? If you'd come on up. If you state your name and address, please.
My name is Pamela Nigliaccio, and I live at 21400 Northeast 63rd Street. My property faces north on 63rd Street, so this subdivision is just a little bit further north of me. And I was here at the August meeting to speak against this. And I guess my question is, I guess to you all, when a plat or a proposed subdivision is being proposed, is it common for them to be allowed to proceed to build roads and build structures and to lay concrete and stuff without it being approved yet, in your eyes?
That's a question for Eric.
No.
Okay.
So it was approved. The preliminary plat is the step in which we do that. So the preliminary plat is where all the engineering as far as the roads, the drainage and everything is reviewed by the county engineer. And once we review it, we bring it to the planning commission for their approval. So they had to approve that before they started construction.
And people around the area don't get any say-so in it before that happens. Is that correct?
Well, they get say-so just because it's a public meeting. So people that were notified or anybody who wanted to come to that public meeting, if I recall, that was a year ago in August of 2023, that particular meeting was had in regards to the preliminary plat of this
I was an
development.
owner in August of 23 and never got a notification. So, this area is pretty rural. There are some houses up and down there, but most of the properties have a fair amount of land and property with it. My property has 8 acres. There's a lot of wildlife. And we had suggested, a couple of people that were here at the August meeting had strongly suggested that these lots be made into like 2-acre lots to help allow for more wildlife to continue to exist. Also, here recently, there was a huge fire out there at the Nowakowski's farm because there are limited fire hydrants in the area. And I don't know if there's going to be any fire hydrants. No. So another risk factor involved when you're putting in divisions like this, which are becoming more common out in Hera, which presents further harm to the area, to the property, to wildlife, to possible injury to people. And so, in addition to overcrowding the schools with these subdivisions that are, cookie cutter homes, like someone else described. We just ask that I understand about progress, but I'm a healthcare provider and I see a lot of those injuries. And so I'm just asking that the applicant take that into consideration. So.
Any questions?
You live east or west of, Hare Road?
I live east of Hare Road.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone else here talk against? Hearing and seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve/deny item number 7.
Motion approved. Contingent. Contingent on the.
A contingent on the,
I'll second it.
so just to confirm, we have a motion to approve item number 7, contingent on the driveway test. The road test, asphalt test. Okay. Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Item number 8, discussion and possible action to approve/deny the preliminary plat of Orchard Hills, Section 1, FP 2024-01. Eric?
So this is a development that was actually denied by the Planning Commission quite some time ago and was approved by the Board of County Commissioners shortly after that. Since that time, this is the, I guess, southeast half of this development of which they're asking to start construction on. This is the preliminary plat, so we reviewed all the engineering in regards to drainage, road improvements. We didn't have any issues, just some minor issues, so we're waiting on getting that documentation back from them. The only other question that we had, staff, was just fire protection, and they were going to get back to us on that as well. We did have a few letters of protest, and I sent those to the applicant. I don't think the Planning Commission has seen those just because I just got those recently, so I'll provide those to you as well. Those letters of protest are just in regards to the lot sizes to the south, some agreement that they made with the developer when this was approved back at the beginning. So I do have a drawing here that is a little bit different than what is on screen. The lots that are on the south side there are larger, and there's also a 50-foot setback that they agreed to. So let me pan these out so you can see what it actually what it's going to be, and then also the letters of protest.
Do we need to make a motion to receive these? I was loose track.
Letters of protest, yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion to receive the letters of protest?
So moved.
Roll call?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson? Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
You read them or you want them? I'll read them. Two acres, I got almost 2 acres. Excuse me. That is moving further away from these existing houses. When we denied it, what was it when we denied it? Was it half acre? Okay. Okay.
What? Yeah, I could be eating right now, but
We denied it and they approved it. And so why is it back here? Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Are you still the acting?
until Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they hired someone. So. This might be my last one.
What do you do then?
Go back to my old job where I just supported them.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to.
The job you're getting paid for?
Yes. I forgot we talked about that. He's Paul Monster. What? You know about? See how it goes? We'll be here Monday.
Does anybody have any other questions for Eric? Is there anyone here who'd like to talk in favor of this project?
Good afternoon. I'm Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, Yukon, representing the applicant. And and Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, but just for a little clarification on the history of this, I think you all denied the rezoning. We deferred the general plat at that point in time. The Board of Commission approved the zoning, and then the general plat actually come back to you all, of which you approved. So this application today is the preliminary plat that is in conformance. It matches the approved general plat with the exception, like I say, when we originally made that application and we had multiple layouts we were toying with throughout time. And so I think we inadvertently submitted a plat that didn't reflect correctly on the south, the approved general plat. But since then, we've made those corrections, resubmitted to Eric, and I think that's what he just explained to you. So this plat's completely in conformance with the approved general plat, obviously the zoning. And we've had quite a bit of discussions about this one, so we'd certainly ask for your approval.
Questions?
Yeah. Are any of these lots in the 100-year floodplain?
None.
Okay.
The floodplain, just to kind of go along with his question, the floodplain is in the very northeast corner of the property there. So basically the lots that are the very north, they touch that floodplain, if you will, and a lot of that floodplain is in that intersection and back to the west.
Yeah, they adjoin it, but they don't encroach.
They don't encroach on the lot.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone here to talk against this project?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Beverly Palmer. I live at
Eric, would you mind helping her?
227 Cedar Farm Road. I appreciate all of you serving on the Planning Commission. I'm quite a bit disturbed. First, these changes, they happened at 5:18 p.m. yesterday, and I received it this morning. And this is a violation of due process. If you're going to change something, we need to have information ahead of time and do it. And further, but we approved it. There were 2 people in our neighborhood that talked to somebody. That is not the approval of the whole neighborhood. That is not the approval of anyone. So I think from a standpoint of due process, this is in violation. Changing things at the last minute, that's really not appropriate. So if you want to talk on that issue, and then I have a procedural point too, when we're deferring this and denying this. I know a little bit more than the general public, but to the general public, that's very confusing, because when I called the first time to make a protest, I was told that their application was withdrawn, and it wasn't deferred, it was withdrawn. And so I think if you're going to be using this language, it needs to, number one, if people that have filed a written protest need to have it submitted to them so they know what's going on. And if there's a homeowners association, let them know. And then I know you can't submit the notices to everyone, it's very expensive, but for 2 procedural points, I think that needs to be done under the due process. I think it's appropriate to defer it at this time. You can't just come in at the 11th hour or the same day and make changes. So if you want to talk about that, otherwise I can go on to my substantive matters as well.
Go on to the substitute for now.
All right. I live in Cedar Ridge Farms. I moved there in 2005. We were drawn there by the schools and the peaceful environment there. There were, it was country. I grew up in the country in a rural town, and I liked it. And that's where we wanted to raise our children. And I actually worked in this building for many, many years on the 5th floor. And I would take that commute, and it was tough. And the schools have experienced such rapid growth that they have been having to build and be in portables, and it just continues to keep on going. When we moved there in 2005, the enrollment was 2,360, and as of March of this year, it was 7,899 students. That's over 3 times plus. We have made new schools, but let the schools catch up. We're still having to use portables. We're still trying to use schools, and the schools are just busting at the seam. And you are approving these different areas that are allowed, and the teachers in the schools are just being overwhelmed with it. And I believe that Dr. Perez is going to be here to speak on it as well as the principal of Prairieville may weigh in on it. But you can't overburden these with all these different housing additions, not just the one by us. And then item number 9 is for zoning to allow more homes to be there. And then of course you've got item number 10, that there's a bunch more homes. I mean, at some point, there's got to be a breaking point. Let the schools catch up. And the second point that I want to make is about the roads. The roads up there are incredibly congested and terrible. In 2005, when I moved up there were 2-lane roads, and 20 years or almost 20 years later, there's still 2-lane roads. So I want to know, what is the plan for the Planning Commission? When are you going to expand? And yes, you did put expansion on Highway 74, which is helpful, and the traffic circles on Meridian were helpful. But you can be in traffic if you're coming up from the city, if you work anywhere in the city or downtown and come north. Half of your commute time will be trying to get out of Deer Creek if you're going in, or if you're coming home. It's not uncommon to be in traffic 30 or 45 minutes because there's so much traffic. I submitted my protest, which you just received.
Any questions?
I'm not finished yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you.
Thank you for the applause, but no, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So we literally have to drive on the wrong side of the road to try to go around the school areas. And I know that's very unsafe and very dangerous, but if not, you might be there for 45 minutes or more. And then sometimes, depending on where you're at, when school gets out, I've been on 164th trying to go north on Meridian, and I have been stopped numerous times for 15 or 20 minutes at a dead stop. One time I decided, I'm going to count how many cars. These aren't the cars that are already in the parking lot waiting to pick up their kids. 45 cars before I could even inch. What if there was an emergency? How would fire and police and EMSA get there? It's not. The roads need to be expanded, and also we need to get the schools in line before we start approving all of these different developments. Lastly, water. I don't know who is telling you where this water is going to come from for this subdivision north, but I can tell you when we moved in, we wanted to get a water well, and we were told the water quality isn't any good. And I can tell you by looking at sitting on my back porch, there has been continuous drilling for the last 20 years out there, and it's not gotten any better. And there's people that live on MacArthur, north of Waterloo, and they said, well, I'm going to just try it anyways. They drilled a well. It was so bad they couldn't drink it. They said, well, I'll just water my grass. And guess what? Killed their grass. Then I was talking to people in our homeowners association, and apparently we tried it too, and it killed our plants. So they're not going to get any wells. And as the lady said previously, when you get a development with 15 or 20 homes and they're on wells, there are no fire hydrants. So you get a fire going on, what are they going to do? How are they going to combat that? It's not fair to the residents that are there, and it's not fair for the people that would be buying. According to the master plan on page of the county master use plan of 2030, page 51, when there's high density urban development, which requires investment in the related roads, water, and other utility and service infrastructure, these need to be going hand in hand. They can't just have all the development or have the developments come in and all the infrastructure come later. We also are supposed to keep it in harmony with the surrounding areas. The surrounding areas are rural. You can look out and you can see farmers farming their land and you can see cattle grazing. But without proper schools, roads, and water, we're not going to be able to do it. I submit to you, my request is, number one, to deny it straight out. If not deny it, make them come back and show you where they're going to get this water from. And get the well water quality, so that is it drinkable water, or if it's going to be at Deer Creek. I called them this morning. Their permit has expired, and let them reapply and find out how much money are they going to need to build out, and to show you that they have the resources available for that. So we need to be able to enjoy the peace and enjoyment of our land. That's why we all moved out there. That's why we've been doing this. And yes, progress will happen, but let's take it in step, get the roads, get the infrastructure, the water, and then it would be appropriate. So at this time, I request that you deny this.
Hold on.
I get questions. Yeah, that is for 9 and 10. And it's interesting, again, this deferment, delay, how they play with those words. The regular person doesn't know what that means. So they think, oh, we're done with it. And then when nobody's looking, they sneak it on the next agenda or whenever it's convenient. I think that's very distasteful. And as citizens and servants on the Planning Commission, your duty is should be transparent and let people know what you're doing. And I'm not saying that you're not doing it, but perhaps there could be a better process so people know what's going on with that.
Any questions?
Yeah. What got changed yesterday afternoon?
I'm sorry?
What changes was made yesterday afternoon?
They changed the lot sizes in the other corner. And this whole plan, it keeps changing multiple times since I've been looking at it. And the lots that are to the south that backs up to Cedar Ridge Farm, my neighborhood, they made them larger, and they also did a setback. But changing things at the last hour doesn't seem appropriate for, obviously, due process notice and opportunity to be heard.
Maybe that's why they wanted a continuance.
They didn't want a continuance on number 8.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who'd like to talk?
Yes,
ma'am. Just to set the precedence, because this is going to happen on 9 and 10, please refrain from repeating what the person in front of you said. If there's something new, okay, you state your name and address, please.
Cassandra Kuykendall, 6219 Cedar Farm Road. I back up, my backyard will back up to that south end there where the changes were made. We got an email at 5:18 last night that showing the 2-acre lots instead of the 1-acre lots on the back. We replied to the email and then got an answer at 10:18 this morning about my concerns about water. I have a picture of my backyard, what it does when it rains, and they have a lot right in the middle of that drainage. I need something on paper or something showing, they put a house there and they change it. My backyard or my yard floods. What's my recourse? I've already lived in the neighborhood that they put a neighborhood behind our last neighborhood, and now it floods all the time. And unfortunately, one of our old neighbors, his backyard, and it comes into his house. And they said, well, it's a civil engineer fault. Nope, it's developer's fault. Nope, it's the city's fault. Meanwhile, his backyard floods every time it rains. I don't want to be in that position. So I need something, I just want to do my due diligence, and I want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence to make sure that we're not going to have a water issue, because that is a significant drainage area. Even though it's not an 100-yard floodplain, I get that, but I've got proof. This was from, I've got several pictures from several times. Almost every time it rains, it does this. And I'm happy to give these out if you guys want to see them or however we want to do it.
If you wouldn't mind, do we need to make a motion to accept these? Okay, can we get a motion to accept their pictures?
Motion to accept.
And some of those pictures were attached to our protest letter, but I just want to make sure that you guys saw them.
Okay, roll call, Eric. We're gonna technicality.
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Anybody have any questions for her before we move on? Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, I would like to ask a question about this whole timing of notifications and 518 and all that. Does that play any bearing from where we sit? Mhm.
Correct. So the map that you, right, so the map that you see behind you was the map that we originally started with. So as you see along the south border of that development, those lots are 1 acre. The map that was changed, or what we received yesterday afternoon, is those lots there are now 2 acre lots. So they've been combined to make them larger. That was an agreement that was discussed between the folks in Cedar Ridge Farms and the developer during this process itself.
If we can forget that, just from the perspective of notification, when we sent out protest letters, whatever we do, we sent out that map.
Right, but it's a discussion, it's a preliminary plat. So preliminary plats all change all the time. It's just like the general plat that was before that.
Right.
And the public would have noticed that this is on the agenda item today.
Okay.
So as far as general
Notification.
notification of due process, the item was up for today. Obviously, people are here speaking on it, so they did get notification. And they do have the right to tell you that they didn't have enough time. And it's up to you at that time to do with it what you will. But as far as open,
Meetings and,
I believe it's been generally invited.
okay, that's what we needed to know. Thank you. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve / deny item number 8. Oh, sorry.
Well, just, like I say, maybe it doesn't matter, but just as far as the timing goes, I received from Eric the email protest yesterday. And that's the reason that as soon as I got the protest and I looked through them, I realized that in fact they were correct, that as part of the general plat, we agreed that we would make those lots 2 acres. So to me, at least in terms of the argument, if I had 2 acre lots and was trying to make them 1 acre, it might be a little more relevant. But all I did was address their concerns. And then I went ahead and emailed them the updated drawings to show them that this is what I'm sending Eric to address those concerns. As far as the lady that spoke on the drainage, I also emailed her the drainage map, our drainage plan, to show that yes, in fact, there's 5 acres that drains between those lots. But I showed her how that we have accounted for it. We've got all the calculations. All of our plans have been to the county engineer. So all the drainage is accounted for. So thank you.
I've got one more question.
Oh.
The county commissioners have agreed to this.
So the county commissioners will not see this. So the preliminary, the general plat and the preliminary plat go before the planning commission only. So you have the final say so in regards to the subdivision itself. As far as the change in the lot sizes, that does not change the drainage calculations that we received. That remains the same. So as far as everything that we reviewed to this point in regards to drainage, roads. None of that's changed because these lot sizes have changed.
But county commissioners overruled us, if I'm correct, and they agreed upon the 1 acre
In regard to the zoning, that
in
is
regard to
correct.
the zoning.
That is correct.
But not the general plat.
Right. They have no input, if you will, into the plating process itself, which is where we are today.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'm back to, I will entertain. No, we're gonna move forward, sorry. Appreciate it, because we're not debating. Anyhow, with questions. Again, back to, I will entertain a motion to approve / deny item number 8. Since nobody wants to say it, I will make a motion that we deny item number 8. Roll call, Eric. Roll call, Eric.
Thank you. Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson. Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Okay, item has been denied. Item number 9. Before we start that, I have a quick question. Hmm? Yeah.
Let him. He went to get his lunch, didn't he? He went to get his lunch. He went to get his lunch.
And this is all of these issues.
He's never here, is he? He's your commissioner. Huh? Yeah. Wonder what he done with that.
I had like 4. I didn't eat breakfast.
Before we move to item number 9 and 10, I want to take just a quick poll. For item number 9, how many people are here to talk against item number 9? Just item number 9. We're about to do item number 9. So, what's that?
Item number 9 on the board.
Is that the, yeah,
Yes,
that's, yeah,
yes.
yes. Okay. So by a show of hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then how many here are to speak against item number 10? That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Item number 9, discussion and possible action to approve / deny a zoning change from R2 Rural Residential District to R1 Acreage Residential District Z 2024-05. Eric?
Yes, so this particular item is in the same general area as the previous item. This is on MacArthur and 234th. Instead of being in the southwest corner of that intersection, we're in the northeast corner of that intersection, excuse me. Basically what they're asking for in this particular case, you see the map in front of you. They are asking that approximately 96 acres be rezoned from currently what is R2 to R1. In this case, they would have the ability to do a development that is very similar to what was proposed in the previous item, to where the lot sizes would be 1 acre in size. There is not a general plat that has been submitted with rezoning, so I don't know exactly what the design would be at this point, but when we get to that particular point in time, the general public would be notified of the general plat if this item is approved by the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. Besides that, like I said, it's pretty similar to what is to the south. This is a map of the area. This is pretty similar to what is directly to the south. in the previous item and in Cedar Ridge Farms, which is south of it, in regards to the zoning aspect of the case. Obviously, we are getting further out northwest into the county to where we don't have as much development as we do towards the east and towards the south as you get back into the city of Oklahoma City and the city of Edmond. I know there is concern about water on a lot of these developments. So just to try to provide more information, the county's regulations in regards to water is based on lot size. Basically, we don't require water until you get below 3/4 of an acre lot. So if there's any question, well, why is there no water being proposed as development, our regulations don't require it. Also, we do not run Deer Creek Water Corporation, so therefore we have limited say on what has to be attached to their system or not. So hopefully that answers any questions in regards to water and water being run to this particular development. If you have any other questions, I'll answer those for you.
Any questions for Eric? Oh, yeah, okay, anybody here to talk in favor of this project?
Good afternoon, Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll representing the applicant. And just real briefly, I thought I would show a map. And so you can see in the red, this is our subject side. The yellow that I've highlighted are all of the either existing additions or current zoning that allow for lots in the 1 acre minimum lot size. So you can certainly see, and in fact, if you look, and it's kind of hard to see because I didn't realize until later that the zoning map that I had wasn't updated, but there's an additional approximately 60 acres in this location here that's zoned as R1 as well. So I think even if you look at the Orchard Hills addition, as well as these developments down here, Bristol Farms was approved just within the last couple of months, but most of those additions are have been approved within the last year and a half or so. This up here is actually in Logan County, but nonetheless, those are 3/4 acre lots, so you can still kind of see the development pattern. So obviously, if you look at this application, our request to do the R1 is certainly consistent with the development pattern. It's consistent with and is identical to the zoning that you see on these properties that catty corners. And not only that, but I might mention, I highlighted in yellow here as well as here. Those are properties that are currently zoned as R2. However, I will state that they're less than 2 acre. In fact, a couple of them are less than 1 acre. So we actually have adjoiners that are smaller than the lot size that this zoning that we're requesting would allow. So if you look at that, obviously this is just the zoning. We're working with some oil and gas companies and different things to kind of work out some entitlements on the land. As soon as we get those things worked out, we'll be back before you with the general plat so that you can see the layout. It's going to be, I won't get into that much, but conceptually, we're looking somewhere in the 60, 65 lot probably, as far as what the yield would be. But today it's just the zoning. If you look at, obviously, this map, it certainly reveals the fact that it should be considered compatible and consistent with the development pattern. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Thank you. Anyone here else to talk in favor of the project? Okay. I should have mentioned this at the start of the meeting too. You guys have been doing wonderful. But when you do come up here, please address all comments to us. We're not debating with the applicants, and try not to repeat yourself over and over again. And because of the amount of people who are going to be speaking, we want to give everybody their chance to speak. So we are going to, at this point, make it, each person will have 2 minutes to express their views. And Ms. Patterson will be timing. So with that said, who here would like to talk against this project? Well, we'll start with you. Name and address, please.
Beverly Palmer, 22721 Cedar Farm Road, Edmond, Oklahoma. This is interesting that this is supposed to be consistent. This is my neighborhood. All of this is farmland. Cows graze over here. This is new This drainage problem has not been solved. The same things that I made objections to about the schools and the roads and the lack of water apply to that. Right now, you are under the master plan of 2030 that you are supposed to be following, and as long as you're not arbitrary and capricious and you make mindful decisions, the courts are going to uphold you. And as a matter of fact, the city of Edmond just had a case that went up around the Arcadia Lake area, and they won against the developer. Note what's going on in this meeting. Same person coming and asking, let's develop this, let's develop this, let's develop this. What's out there right now, and it has been out there, is farmland, it's agriculture. We need to keep it that way. And once we address the roads and the water in the schools, you can do it. And let me just share quickly about myself. I was a former prosecutor, career prosecutor for Oklahoma County. And I had the power to sentence everybody to the maximum, which would include prison, fines, probation. But we had to make a decision, and we had to wield that power carefully. Just like you all right now, you hold the power. Just because it's the preliminary plat in number 8 or this one in 9, it starts with you. You are the gatekeepers. I had the great opportunity to go to France and see in the south of France what it looked like. And it was very much agriculture. And I was like, wow, this is so good. And it was because their forefathers said, I'm going to stop this. We're not going to let the city grow. We're going to keep it vineyards and agriculture, so it'll be good for everyone. So please take that into consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Sorry. Anyone else? Sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Perez, 20701 North MacArthur Boulevard. I am the superintendent for Deer Creek Schools, and I know you see my face quite a bit, so I apologize. I'm back up here again. But I am speaking now, so that way you don't have to hear me repeat myself for number 10, but kind of the argument still stands. And Ms. Palmer did a great job representing the concerns of the school district. I've mentioned that more than once, that growth is a significant blessing, but it's also a significant issue for us. We cannot bond as quickly as our neighbors, so the ability for us to build at the rate of our growth is very, very challenging for us. I will mention that this school year, 24-25 school year, we've increased our enrollment by 250 students. So this is continuing to be a trend for us. Aside from those points, I want to bring up that for the year of 2024 in our community, the county has voted, and it's not necessarily just this body, has voted to rezone 590 acres of land in our area. Land that was already predetermined as R2, that was purchased as R2, and then was somehow, one way or another, was voted into smaller lots. And I do not believe that the argument of that this particular proposal matches some sort of consistency of building. If we want to talk about consistency, I think we need to look at how much growth is going into our area and keep that in mind as we're making these decisions. We did a demographic study over the next 10 years of growth in our area, and I may have mentioned this before, but Deer Creek Public Schools is forecasted to close roughly 600 to 700 new homes annually for the next 3 to 5 years. So while developers come in and want to talk about rezoning, and we're going to just put 1 acre lots and it's going to match up with the land that's been there before, and this won't happen overnight, so it really won't impact the schools. The reality is we're having large swaths of land being developed every single year for us that are going to have students in it. It's going to have people that are not going to be able to utilize our infrastructure appropriately. It's causing a burden on our community that the developers do not ever get to feel. They drop the homes and they move on their way. And so I would just ask you to please consider the needs of this community and the fact that the folks that are here today are expressing as citizens that this is not a change that they want. They don't believe it's necessary in our area. We do have a variety of housing in our area. We have plenty of it available. So if somebody wanted to come to Deer Creek, there's a lot of different homes that they can move into that are already in place or that are currently being constructed. And there'll be a lot more to come without proposals like this or number 10.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Any other questions? Would you like to address?
Sure. Just a couple of follow-up points. I do think it's interesting, especially Ms. Palmer mentioned that that they should just keep it the same way it is, and she lives in the Farms addition, which is R1 zoning, so which is exactly what we're asking for today. So, you know, I have a little bit of an issue looking at that and trying to differentiate what's different about this site than where she lives. Again, if you look at this project right here, which is 80 acres, was rezoned by both you all as well as approved by the Board of Commission just within the last few months. So if you certainly look at our site, you look at what it adjoins, you look at the adjacent lots, there's no doubt that this is compatible and consistent with the area. I know that your comprehensive plan labels as something different, but your comprehensive plan is 17 going on 18 years old. And there's so much happens in that time. And especially if you look at this area and how it's changed in the last 17, 18 years, am I going to sit here and say that there's no pressure because there's growth? Well, there certainly is, but there is in every community and every place that we go. And it's part of what we have to deal with and what we have to put up to continue to thrive and grow as a community. I know you have the superintendent of the school saying that there's plenty of houses available, but I'm telling you, there's a reason that you're seeing so many applications is because there's a housing shortage in the metro area, includes.
No, please, no comments.
And,
Okay.
and see, that's what the reception we get everywhere, but yet there's a market and there has to be. And so these houses are going to be big, expensive homes, but then we get the, you know, hey, there's no affordable housing, but there's got to be a move up. Well, I'm going
to have to stop you there just because of the fact that to honor the 2 minutes that we held everybody else to. So that's 2 minutes.
But I'm the applicant.
I know,
but
but
am I not allotted more time?
You spoke originally to start off with, so I appreciate it. And
well, okay, I'll be quiet. But again, if you look at the recent applications been approved from you all, and you start to look at this site and try to differentiate between the two, it's hard to find any difference. And so it's consistent, compatible, and we'd certainly ask for your approval.
Anybody have any questions for Eric? Okay. With that said, then I'll entertain a motion to either approve / deny item number 9. I took the hit on the last one.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
No.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson,
No.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Motion approved. Item number 10. Okay, discussion, possible action to approve / deny a zoning change from R2 Rural Residential District to a Planned Unit Development PUD 2024-05 Northwestern Avenue and Coffee Creek Road. Eric?
1 second. So I want to start the discussion. I know I was able to send.
Yeah.
Apologize. We're going to table whether or not, and I'm going to look it up. We're going to look at that vote because it was a 3-2 vote, and we need to make sure that that actually passed because of the quorum requirement.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to be reviewing it, but you will have an answer here shortly.
Sure. Would you like me to wait on this particular item, or?
You can go ahead and proceed with that, and we will come back and you can take up an item in a minute to reconsider and see if that vote we can actually determine if that passed.
Okay. Okay, back to item number 10.
So before I start the discussion of this particular item, I would like to hand out the letters of protest so you have opportunity to read those as I'm going through this presentation here.
So we have a motion to receive the letters of protest.
Motion to receive. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot, Ms. Patterson, Mr. Davidson, and Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Okay. Right. Has an official seal on it.
I would like to look at them, please.
Those were all in the email.
Those were all in the email. Okay. All right. 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 What? All right, Eric, you want to start discussing while we're reading these?
Yeah. Agree. Good. All right. Hey, Will, you're right. You're exactly right. What was his name? To pass. He would need, well, the federal two, we have 7 people. For the pass, he would need 4 or 7. Since we only have 5. With 3 to 2. He said, still need to pass, but you need 4 yeses to pass. This is why we went down to 11 versus 3 or 4 votes. We all have to hold you up. Over and over, we're going to keep going over and over again. Let's see.
Okay. So
sir.
I'll try to go through this a little bit more thoroughly than some of the other 2 items, just because there's more information that's been presented to us in regards to the development itself. So obviously what you have in front of you is a general drawing of 175 residential lots that are approximately half acre apiece. And then along the section line roads, which would be Northwest 220th and Western, they're proposing to put commercial along those sections. So just to go through, since it is a PUD, just to give a little bit more information as far as what's being requested and what is out there so everybody's on the same page. As far as sanitary sewer, that's been a question that we've had a lot of comments about as far as a protest and just phone calls in general. So obviously the county does not have any sanitary sewer, and there is no intention to have sanitary sewer to any of these lots. So DEQ, which is a state agency, allows, as long as you have a public water supply, allows the use of aerobic or septic systems on a half acre lot. Now, from my understanding, as far as water, they're going to use Logan County rural water to service the development. In regards to just what is allowed in the development itself in regards to residential. On the residential side, it's basically what you would think of as far as just your typical single family lots. The things that have been taken out as far as modified, they are, well, no, I take that back. So basically they're going to allow all residential uses there. I mention that because some of those residential uses are potentially manufactured homes, possibly. The way it's written currently.
But no, please, people, no comments. We understand, but to move this along.
Sorry, that was a previous version. So we've had a discussion. Excuse me. So manufactured homes has been taken out. excuse me, that was a previous rendition of this PUD design statement. So you'll have to forgive me for that. In regards to the commercial side, I'd be more than happy to go over the commercial uses if you'd like. Basically, what they've excluded from the commercial side is adult entertainment and medical cannabis dispensaries. So I can go over the other uses if the folks in the crowd would like us to, as well as the planning commission.
Well, no. the- You'll have the opportunity to talk, but we're not asking questions as we go through. Anybody have any questions for Eric?
No, okay.
We're good.
All right. So obviously, there's quite a few uses in regards to the commercial, in the neighborhood of 50 uses that can be conducted on that property. I've gone over the lot sizes. Basically, the lot widths for these residential tracts are going to be 65 feet. So it's modified. The R1 zoning district is what they've modified to allow for the half-acre lots. As far as the facade of the homes themselves is going to be typical homes as far as brick, architectural metal, masonry, all of the typical things that you see in the homes that are out there in that particular area. As far as landscaping in regards to the commercial part is going to follow the county's regulation, which in this particular case is CG, which is commercial general. There's going to be the same thing for lighting and screening. That's important, obviously, in regards to the homes that are going to be adjacent to the residential. So they're going to be held to a higher standard in regards to screening, lighting, landscaping requirements. Also, any parking requirements that we have for that particular zoning designation. Also, the same goes for signage and any dumpsters that are going to be there on the property. We regulate all of those, so they'll have to come into compliance with those requirements because they stated that in the PUD document that they have provided to us. In regards to signing, they are going to allow freestanding signs, and that's going to be regulated by CG, and they're going to have attached signs to the building as far as the activity that's going to be conducted there, the business itself. There will be no non-accessory signs, and there will be no electronic message display signs on the property itself. These are the main issues that have come up in regards to this particular PUD, but past PUDs. I wanted to try to provide as much information I could up front as far as if this document is approved by this board and the Board of County Commissioners, what they would have to agree to.
Questions for Eric?
I do just want to provide a little bit more information in regards to streets and what we would allow, what we would require. There's been a lot of concern as far as streets and widening of streets, traffic, and that type of information that we received in the protest and phone calls. As far as widening of those streets, the county has a regulation that when the commercial does develop, those particular people that are building on those lots, they will have to provide a wider access point. They can either provide that and construct that themselves, or they'll have to pay a fee in lieu of to the county for the county to go back at some point in the future to develop or to expand that roadway that is currently there. Also, with the number of lots that are there in regards to residential, if this is approved during the preliminary plat phase, we will require a traffic impact analysis, which will look at this development, but also the other developments in the area and the commercial that's attached to this particular development to determine what other traffic issues may need to be addressed as we move forward with the development itself. That's all that I had, unless you had any particular questions of me.
And the applicant's here to speak.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Once again, Caitlin Turner, 522 Gulfport Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. So Eric went through the substance of the PUD documents, 2 tracks, 33 acres dedicated to CG, which is just to the south there. You see a little CG parcel. And the remainder of the site would be the base zoning of R1 with half-acre lots. We would be The reason for the continuance in the beginning was to ask to go back, revise the master design statement, revise the site plan to increase the minimum lot size to 1 acre. So that's something that you see immediately north of this site. That's what you see to the south of the site. And that's what you see to the west of this site are 1 acre lots. So happy to modify it from the floor or ask for that modification if that needs to be a separate motion to increase that lot size to a minimum of 1 acre. It would cut the lots in half, and we would still have the commercial in the hard corner and along the frontage. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you all have.
So you're open to us modifying the PUD today to 1 acre lots?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here in favor, want to talk in favor of this project? Eric, before we move on, so if we were to require that to go to 1 acre, would they have to provide another drawing, or how does that work?
Well, we would modify the PUD document. That document, at the end of the day, if it's approved by this board and the Board of County Commissioners, acts as the zoning for the property itself.
Right, and then we go through the planning, preliminary plots and all that stuff?
Well, right. Basically, the zoning would have to be approved first. So once that's approved, then they would start the process of platting, general plat, preliminary plat, final plat.
Thank you. Okay, it's that time. Is there anyone here who would like to talk against this project? Again, remember, we're going to hold to 2 minutes, and I ask very politely, try not to repeat yourself, and also address all comments to us. Please, no other comments, because we can't hear what the people are saying if everybody else behind them is talking or cheering in that nature. So with that said, first up, let's start. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Dave Webster. I live at 22460 Lawrence Lane, which would be the property that is in the far southeast corner of Sudley Farms. I would back up to what is the commercial area. I'm not against residential development here. I just think this is a horrible plan. The biggest concern for me, one, is flooding. The water runs off Coffee Creek, it goes down into our yard and into my neighbor's yard and then into a pond that basically looks like they're going to eliminate and put streets and stuff there. We're going to have flooding come back into our yards. The other thing is you have a channel that starts clear over in Addington Farms, half mile to the west, runs down between our addition and the Cumberland Crossing addition. And again, all of that goes onto this property. So you're going to add 175 more houses, driveways, streets, dumping into that where it's already flooding. Traffic, obviously, everybody's talked about that. I won't go into that, but I mean, these are all 2-lane, narrow roads with no shoulders. School overcrowding, I'm sure the school board's going to address, but we'll let the school address that. One of my concerns, I'm a volunteer firefighter with Deer Creek Fire Protection District. When you get that high a density of housing, you're going to have street parking and narrow streets. You get a large SUV or a pickup parked across from each other, you can't get an engine or an aerial down that street. The other thing is, we don't need this in our area. Market saturation. They talked about needing these houses. Oklahoma City has approved 804 houses at the corner of 206 and May. There's 2 more additions to the north of that, and then across the street. There's 1,000 lower income houses coming online right now within 3 miles of this. We don't, the deal that we need more houses is ridiculous. The other is commercial. Why are we putting commercial right in the middle of a residential area? There are no commercial structures around here except for a small landscape and nursery across the street, which has very limited traffic, and there's 2 fireworks stands. Other than that, there is not a commercial property within 2 miles of this place. And I don't see any reason why we should stuff commercial in here. And I've got a lot more points, but I'll let other people address that.
Thank you, sir.
Steve Blue, 22560 Lares Lane. My property also backs up against the planned development. Many problems, but again, basically the commercial. And regarding the commercial general development that's planned, the Oklahoma County zoning regulations update itself states this verbatim. Because of the varied uses permitted, it is important to be separated as much as possible visually and physically from any nearby residential areas, and to limit the effects of increased traffic, noise, and general non-residential activity that may be generated. That's from your own planning documents. They want to put those commercial zones right next to our property, adjacent to some property. They want to surround the planned development with those commercial zones. Again, directly in violation of your own documents. So how that can be approved would be beyond me. So other folks have talked about the schools, the drainage, but one thing I will note is they stated they're planning to use Logan County water. On Monday, I talked to Logan County Water, Rural District 1 and District 2, and they stated unequivocally they will not run service down to that area. They will not run service south of Waterloo. They may put in an application, but I've talked to them both. I'll be more than happy to call them back on Friday and get names of the engineers I talked to. So where this water is coming from, so I've talked to Deer Creek Water too, there's been no application there. If they were to use Deer Creek water, we already have water pressures issue on that side of Deer Creek. Anybody who lives in this area knows 6 a.m. hour in the morning, low water pressure. Summertime, low water pressure. You add 175 houses or even half that, if you do 1 acre, it's going to be water issues. So I respectfully request you leave it at R2. That way nobody is harmed in this. The developer bought it, designated R2. R2 right now won't impact us, and we denied nobody the right to live in that area. It's a great area. But if you change it, then we are impacted. Very real and harmful impacted, especially with commercial, because that will impact our property values. So, thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Linda Quick Tomlin, and I live at 22670 Kembers Lane. And I was the author of the letter that got circulated. We got 91 signatures, and that was just me gathering them. And we got almost 100% protest of everybody that got the notice in our neighborhood. And nobody wants this in our area. And I know you guys look at what, you know, the notices that went out and who they went to and what their concern is. You're not looking at as much at the rest of us, but we're all concerned about it. If you get on any Facebook page in the area, nobody wants this. And I don't understand why, when the developer buys the land and it's R2, it's R2 residential. We're not opposed to residential. We are opposed to a PUD that would allow commercial development. We don't mind, you know, we love the area. We want people to be able to come out there and enjoy it as well. We want to continue to receive the services we get by being Deer Creek residents, which means great schools. It means having everything that we have now that we won't be able to get if you pack in another 178 houses in there. And again, we're not opposed to, most of us here aren't opposed to them building on 1 acre lots. I don't see why it needs to be changed as far as it being R1 versus R2. It's already rated R2. When the developer bought that property, it was rated R2. It's not fair for them if they made a bad investment, if it's not what they wanted to be able to build on, they should have bought property that was already zoned R1 or on a PUD and not come into our area and say, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to be able to make as much money, so I get to go to somebody and say, hey, I want to have this rezoned where I can put a lot more stuff in. And that's just a bad investment. If I make a bad investment, that's on me. That's not on anybody else on the board to say, oh, I'll make you whole, we'll fix you. So it's not okay. And we invested in our properties, they invested in theirs. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm Gina Stanley. I live at 1240 Brookside Court in Edmond. We are just north of this development. My husband Scott We actually developed Brookside Hills, which is just north of there, like I said. When we bought that property, it was designated R1. Contrary to what was said here, our neighborhood has a few 1 acre lots, but the vast majority of them are at least 1.5, some 2+ acres. So when we developed, we were able to come in and honor the trees that were there. We wrapped roads around them, make a bigger lot than we had to. I talked to the engineer of this plan. He was trying to find out what we really wanted. And I said, why can't we just leave it R2? And he said, money. So I would strongly discourage any approval of this other than R2, which, like was just said, is what it is and what it needs to be.
Yeah, and when we finished the development, there were 13 lots left that we took over. And we had the opportunity to slice them up, to squeeze in 2 or 3 more lots. And we said, no, that's not the right thing to do. That's not why people move out here. And so there are lots. I know Matt's back here. He's got a 2 acre lot. We have almost a 2 acre lot, and other people do too. Even though one's the minimum, most of them are larger than that. We clean the creeks out to help with the drainage. We put a 500-year bridge in to help with the water, and it's still a mess out there. And to bring in more homes at this point is just, it's going to ruin the eco balance that we have out there. And, you know, sometimes things are needed, businesses are needed, students are needed, homes are needed. This is not needed in any of those respects. So I say we keep it R2. Thank you.
Yep, come.
My name is Matt Thomas. I live at 1140 Brookside Court. If you look at the map in front of you, the commercial property that's proposed that's going north on Western butts up right to my backyard. My wife and I, and just like many of the neighbors in the area, bought property in here because of the value there and the privacy to get out of the neighborhoods. My wife and I just spent $40,000 to build a pergola and put a nice private oasis on our back porch. And now I get the privilege of looking forward to, what, a stockade fence? So that's the personal problems that I have with this development. And I'm really hoping that you guys deny this outright. One of the questions that I do have is looking at these common areas, C and B. I'm looking at those thinking that those are spring-fed ponds. And I'm assuming that those common areas are being done that way because you can't build anything on those spring-fed ponds. Even if you fill them in, they're always going to be a problem one way or another. My concern is the environmental concern is what happens to all the runoff and all the lawn pollution from chemicals being sprayed on lawns and all these lots. What's the impact going to be to our water table in the area? Has anybody contacted DEQ or OWRB to find out or do any kind of study regarding this? Water table in the area is already being stressed. So I ask you again, please deny this outright.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Hayworth, live at 1180 Brookside Court. My property backs up to the proposed property. I want to give you a little background about the property itself. If you look it up, prior to 2000, that property dates back to the land run. One family and their heirs owned that property for almost 100 years. You can imagine the family members that are buried on that property, the land that's there. It's the same as it was in the land run. And so, you know, they've drilled wells there. It was purchased and wells were drilled. Those eyesores are still there. But that property is abundant with livestock. I mean, live wildlife. There's deer, turkeys, all kinds of wildlife in that area that will be just destroyed if this is allowed to happen. And again, within a half a mile of that property, there are 3 bridges. Those 3 bridges cannot handle this additional traffic. It can't happen. They're already in bad shape. So adding this to this infrastructure, which is already can't handle the load that it has, to add more You can't put 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bucket. That's it.
I'm Jason LaForge. I live at 22500 Lawrence Lane, adjacent to this property. I'm going to go through this quickly. We're a little bit different. We're in the process of selling our home, have been the last 3 or 4 months. I reached out to our realtor after we got this notice, and I said, "What's the impact to me?" She said, "You could expect less money for the house." So that to me is very concerning, right? I'm going to be negatively financially impacted to enrich somebody who wants to rezone it for themselves. That's not okay with me. The other part is the flooding. When it does rain, there's a low river that goes through my backyard. I don't know if any studies have been done in terms of the flooding and what happens there, but there will be problems. I can assure you that. Water supply, sounds like that's not addressed quite yet. Seems like maybe Logan County isn't aware. The other is the commercial development. I do have issues with that. I don't like the fact that this information comes in at the end of the day before the meeting. I mean, that's just not in full transparency. I think we've kind of glossed over the schools. I have 3 girls. 2 of them have graduated. They both graduated valedictorian from Deer Creek. Very proud of that. I have a 3rd child that's in 4th, 5th. She's in 5th grade. The other day she came home with her homework and we sat down. It was halfway done. I said, "Why is this halfway done?" She said, "Well, we did it in class." I said, "Well, did you ask your teacher for help?" You want to know what she said to me? She said, "Yes." But the teacher looked at me and said, "I don't have time to help you right now. I got to go help other students that need more help than you. Take it home to your parents." The fact that they cannot take care of the current class size is a huge problem. I went on the web and I looked. What does it say on the web? Deer Creek class size. It says 1 to 19. So I asked, "What's your class size?" 25. 25 students. You guys are glossing over the school part. I cannot emphasize enough that we're approving this stuff. That's fine. We're approving this stuff and we're not considering the infrastructure that has to come into place to keep up with it. One of the reasons why we're leaving, I'm thinking I'm taking the 3rd valedictorian away, is because of the school system and the impact that it's having on the students in the area. I will say the majority of people in the area are now moving to private schools because of this, so they're moving out of the school systems. I don't think that negating or not wanting to address that problem is in the best interest of anybody in this community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Quentin Hooper, and I live at 1210 Bailey Circle, which is located in the subdivision located just to the north of this proposal. And I'm not gonna. I wrote down a whole little thing to say everybody's already covered it. I'm not going to beat you to death with it, but to the representative of the developer, I would say just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'd like to hire these 2 ladies if I ever start a company. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Misty Elliott. I live at 22990 Bailey Circle. I also live in the addition north of this area. Everybody's covered all my bases, but I'm also a co-owner of a real estate company in the Deer Creek area. And so 3 facts come to mind. On the commercial property, there's nothing, like someone said, within 2 miles of this area, and 2 miles south of this, we have had a Brahms and a 7-Eleven post signs that they were going to build over the last probably 3 to 5 years. They have now removed those signs. So if they want a commercial property, I'm not sure why they didn't go 2 miles south and try to buy that. We drive over 2 miles to go to all of our commercial property, grocery stores and all that. So we would still drive to them. So I just want to make sure you guys realize that. And then also, I just looked up and we have over 380 homes available in Deer Creek currently as of this minute. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Anderson. I'm the principal of Prairieville Elementary School, which is just right over to the west of Southerly Farms, which would be a little bit further west than this new proposed addition. I will say that I've been at Prairieville for 21 years. When I very first started out there, thank you. When I very first started out there were 2 elementary schools in Deer Creek, a middle school and a high school. And I live just south of Deer Creek in Edmond at 1209 Scotch Pine. And I will tell you that the lady that just came before me mentioned that about the 7-Eleven and the Brahms, and that's right by my house. And they've both pulled out because of various reasons. I don't know why. I don't know why they would go 2 miles to the north if they pulled out of the N4th or 192nd. The thing that I want to really emphasize is that I've been there for all of the growing pains for Deer Creek. And every single time we get enough money to build in a new elementary school or a new middle school or new intermediate school, my school gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Before Rose Union was built, we were up to 750 kids. We had kids in closets on the stage. We had them in the lobby. Rose Union opened, my school went back down. As the years went past, people kept moving out there, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. And then they opened Grove Valley, and I went back down again. There's no other school that will be able to absorb the kids in this neighborhood except me right now, because I'm the farthest east and I'm the farthest north. So, like somebody so eloquently said earlier, you can't put 10 pounds of crap in a 5-gallon bucket. Back in the day, we had 700 kids at my school. And like I said, there's no room at the inn.
Eric, I got a couple of questions before we move on, because it appears we are finished. Okay. One of the things that came up was DEQ and water. How does that play into all this? How does that work?
So DEQ's regulations allow, as long as you have access to a public water supply, you can have half-acre lots that can be served by aerobic or your traditional septic system. So if they don't have access to a public water supply, then you would have to increase the size of the lots. You could go to 3/4 of an acre, which is basically what Southerly Farms is to the west. And you can do a traditional aerobic septic system on a water well. Now I know, at least in this particular area here, in regards to commercial, on the map there, you do see that corner that is designated as commercial, but on the other pieces of property that are the light blue, those are PUDs. And so a PUD is just like this particular item, to where at the southeast corner of 220th and Penn, that block that sits right there on the hard corner is empty currently, but it is zoned commercial. It is the same thing with the southwest corner of that intersection, that light blue block. That is a commercial PUD. So there is commercial there. Because you don't see a building doesn't mean it's not already there. Southerly Farms, which is to the south and west of this particular development, as you can see, those lots are significantly more dense than what is to the north and to the west. That is because it is served by Deer Creek Water and by the city of Oklahoma City as far as sewer. City of Oklahoma City is currently at capacity as far as their system, and so they are not allowing anybody else to attach to their system at this point in time. My guess would be, if they did allow anybody to attach, this development would probably take advantage of that particular situation. Now, as you go back to the south and east of this particular development, you're back into the city of Edmond. That is the city of Edmond and the city of Oklahoma City's wastewater treatment plant that is on the southeast corner of this particular intersection there now. So sure, there is a lot of activity that's happening out in this particular area. When you get into these areas that are adjacent to other city limits, Edmond, And the city of Oklahoma City, you typically have these increases in development because you have the proper utilities, you have the proper sewer, you have the proper water to serve that development. So that's why you see what you currently see on the map. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is with the protest, especially along the west side of this development, in regards to this board, just to make you aware, that's a significant protest. And when it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, however they vote, if they vote to approve this, they would have to vote unanimously to do so. If there's any other question that you have in regards to what is out there and how it got to be out there, I can answer those questions.
Any other questions for Eric? No, me. We have some questions for you. You've heard all the, and through the protest, talking about rain, one-off. What is the plan to handle that? Is there a plan?
So we are gonna be meeting all county regulations when it comes to drainage and water runoff. It's against the law to increase water runoff more than what historically is there. So we're gonna have to mitigate. That will likely come later at the plotting phase, whenever we can see what kind of detention or retention is needed and how big common areas need to be to accommodate those places to mitigate water runoff. So since we're in the PUD, this is of course the very first stage. We're gonna have to do the traffic analysis. We're gonna have to do an analysis for drainage. All of those things will come after this initial application.
Do we know, I know it's still at the early stage, do we have anything planned on the western border as for a stockade fence, chicken wire? I mean, what are we talking?
Are you referring to the commercial?
No, I'm just talking, just in general, on the eastern side where your development hooks up, meets from the commercial all the way up. I mean, are we planning on putting any trees, bushes? I mean, what's the goal?
Yeah, the county regulations require the increased screening and landscaping to significantly buffer and allow for kind of a site proof between residential and commercial. So those are all heightened standards that we agree to in our master design statement. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, but
So are you just referring to the commercial only, or are you talking about all along the west side?
Gentleman who said he built the backyard and now he's gonna be looking at the commercial, so, at that
So,
point.
so the north side along Western. So
Right.
yes, there is a higher standard that they have to abide by. There are options in regards to what they put there. It can be landscaping, it can be fencing, it can be a stone masonry fence. So there are options that they have to fulfill that requirement.
And to be clear, just hypothetically, if we were to approve this today, do those standards have to be input today or they happen during the plotting process?
So those standards are basically, this document dictates that. So whenever that time comes, when they develop that particular piece of property, like I said, some of these pieces of property that you see are commercial have been out there for decades. So let's say that sits out there for a decade and no one touches it. Whenever they come to develop it, they're going to have to meet the regulations that we have in place. And I don't see, definitely when it comes to commercial and residential, that's one of the main things that has been in our regulations since 1991. So that's not something that's going to change anytime soon.
You guys have any other questions?
And just real briefly on that commercial, I know there were multiple comments made about that commercial tract. Commercial not only reduces the residential lots in this area, it increases sales tax, it increases revenue. It has a lot of benefits, especially when you take into the fact that it's on a hard corner of two major arterials and just diagonal from it, there's commercial. We would love to be able to provide commercial development here that's not over 2 acres away from the surrounding residential.
Please.
Oh, I don't.
Please. Okay.
So if that is something that you all are opposed to, then we can absolutely take it back to the drawing board and figure out what else we can do there that's not commercial. We just saw it as a highly beneficial addition to this PUD and to this area.
I'm gonna, excuse me. I hate to do this, but if we do this again, we will have to stop the meeting and I'll have to ask you to leave. If you can't be quiet while other people are speaking, we're gonna have a problem. So please stop. Okay, ma'am, please finish.
That it was really a deferral to you all. If you all are opposed to the commercial and you don't see as an added benefit, then of course we can take it back to the drawing board and modify as we see fit, especially since we will be modifying to the 1 acre lots, which I think that a lot of the protest and a lot of the concern is mitigated with cutting the number of lots in half from what is shown currently.
Thank you. Any other questions? Appreciate it. Before we move on to a motion and a vote, can we go back to the previous?
Yes, because the vote, there was, the quorum of this board is a 7-member board.
Correct.
Currently, there is 1 position vacant, but that does not change what quorum is. To have a quorum of the board, it requires 4. I have now consulted with the bylaws and with the statutes. Some governing boards require a full vote, a majority vote of the full board to pass, but this particular board in its bylaws requires 4 votes of any kind to conduct business. So your quorum is 4 and it requires 4 votes to be cast, which in this case did. And also, and according to the bylaws, this board follows the Robert's Rules of Order. And according to Robert's Rules of Order, a majority of the quorum is 3, and therefore the vote did pass because based upon our bylaws that have been in place since 1990.
So just to clarify, so the way we voted is correct. It is the way is on the record, and it now goes to the Board of County Commissioners to
Correct.
continue the next step.
Correct. We do not need to go back and readdress that item. The item did pass.
Thank you. Okay, with that said, that brings us to item number 10. And at this point, we have options. We can vote to approve as is. We can vote to deny as is, but we can vote to approve as adjusted, or we can vote to deny as adjusted. So keep that in mind as you think about your motion to whether we approve or deny.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Roll call.
Mr. Murray. Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson. Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, item number 10, motion to deny is approved. Item number 11, discussion and possible action to receive. Actually, one quick second before you leave, just so you guys understand the process, this now will go to the Board of County Commissioners in about 3 weeks, and you need to be there too. You're welcome.
No.
I'm not.
No.
I'm not.
You have to, you can either call me, my number 713-7146, or you can go to the county's website. If you go to oklahomacounty.org, on the top right-hand corner, there is a button there that says agendas. You can watch the Board of County Commissioners agendas there. Typically, the agenda is published a day or 2 before the meeting takes place. So let's say that the meeting takes place on a Wednesday, which they typically do. The agenda would either be posted late Monday or Tuesday, and it'll be there at that point in time. But you can always call me. The meeting will be here in this room at 9 o'clock. Like I said, the only thing that may change is the day, because the Board of County Commissioners, if I can get it on earlier, would be October the 1st. And so just the way their agenda falls, sometimes at the beginning of the month, it's the first day of the month. So if I can get it on the agenda, I don't know if I can, because the DA has to review it as well. And then the next meeting after that would be October the 10th, which is a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, at 9 o'clock in the morning. And from that point, it's every Wednesday after that.
So at this point, I know you're all leaving. Could you quietly do so? Because we do still have items on our agenda. Thank you. Item number 11, discussion and possible action to receive the August 2024 fee fund and expense report. Eric, how much money we making?
Not much. Basically, well, like I said, last month we were up because we had registration of contractors in regards to plumbing, electrical, and mechanical contractors. And now this month, or I'm sorry, past month in August, we are down $2,600. So for the year, which is 2 months into the fiscal year, we're still in the black, and we'll see how long that lasts.
Anybody have any questions for Eric? I then will entertain a motion for us to receive the fee fund report.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
and Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, item number 12, new business. In accordance to the Open Meetings Act, section 311.9, new business is defined as any matter not known about or which could not have reasonably foreseen prior to the time of the posting of this agenda. Eric, do we have any new business?
No, sir.
Okay, item number 12, right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Murray, Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
That's why I didn't have a pen. You took